Welcome to the Punk CX podcast. My name is Adrian Swinscoe. I'm an advisor, author, and general explorer of the service and experience space. My guests tend to have just released some interesting research. They run a company that has some interesting tech in the service and experience space. They are part of an organization that is doing some cool stuff, or they run their own business doing interesting things for both their customers and or their employees. That's enough from me. Let's get into the interview. Before we get into the interview, I'd like to give a big shout out and thanks to all of the folks at Calendly for sponsoring the podcast this month. Calendly makes scheduling meetings easy and efficient, eliminating the hassle of back and forth emails so you can get back to work. It's used by everyone from small businesses to Fortune 100 companies, and millions of people around the world rely on Calendly to close deals, build better relationships with their customers, drive customer success, and grow their businesses faster. So do check them out by following the links in the show notes. Now, let's get back into the interview.
So welcome, Maneesha. I'm so excited to have you on the Punk Women in CX Collab podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you very much, Claire, to having me here. Thank you.
So, and that also actually crumbs. So it's been a while since Claire and I have done this.
Yeah,
so
we're a bit out of practice. So welcome and congratulations as a start.
No, that's fine. I am going to throw this. I'm going to keep all of this in. I mean, it's going to like going, we're supposed to be professional about this, but it's completely amateur hour. So kind of Claire and I normally do this, like interview the CX Leader of the Year winner every year. And she puts it out on the Women in CX community, and I put it out on the Punk CX kind of podcast. And we've been figuring out how to do that. We're supposed to have like a baton passing question sort of like thing, but we're just generally being rubbish at it. But I want to kind of jump in and say, Maneesha, lovely to see you. Congratulations on the win, and welcome to this collab kind of like podcast thing. Which is the thing. Anyway, so I'm going to shut up now and pass it back to Claire.
So Maneesha, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the work that you do?
So Claire, I am a customer experience director here in JDID. JDID is Jingdong, Indonesia. It's a subsidiary of Jingdong. It's one of the largest retailer in China. So as a director of CX, I have like three different big portfolios. One is customer experience, which includes the product design, data, technology that goes along with the building the platform for the customers. Second portion is the customer service operations as well is parked under me. And third is the seller operations is also parked under me, because I also look after, for us, customers is both buyers and sellers, unlike other organizations that we see typically. So the customer experience, buyer experience and seller experience is different. But in our case, it has been parked under my care. So yeah, been here for 4 years and I've been taking care of these three big portfolios.
That's a big job.
That is a big job.
Yes.
I mean, can I jump in and ask, Maneesha, so did you come from a customer experience or sort of like a customer related sort of like function background, or how did you get into this sort of space?
Well, I honestly speaking, I do ask that for myself as all the time. But okay, on a hindsight, I certainly didn't have a linear path to where I am today. I mean, I come from a very strong technology background. I was a software programmer. I used to program code, Unix and Win32, Pascal and Fox Pro.
Hardcore.
In 1999-98. Yeah. And then I moved to become a Oracle and SQL developer or a database administrator. I used to write. So I come from that background where I also did a lot of web applications, designed a lot of web applications. That was like almost like 2 years before I moved into becoming a technical consultant, then functional consultant, then started working on taking care of projects, business consultant. And it was just maybe after 10 years or so, after doing a lot of consulting work across different continents, I moved into handling business operations. I think one common thing across when I look back, in all my roles that I have been, the key was people. The key was the people that I'm surrounded. If I'm a developer, I still have to think from a user standpoint. If I'm a web application developer, I still have to think for customer. If I'm running SQL queries or writing Oracle procedures or triggers, I still have to think of what is the impact on the end user, the speed. I have to think about speed and efficiency. So in all my roles, it was centered around the people and the people I serve. It could be an individual customer, it could be a client, or it could be an end user who is just working through certain apps or projects. So user experience was always at the center. And I think when I got this opportunity to lead customer experience in Alibaba Group, it felt and seemed like a natural move for me. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's a bit like you've started kind of right in the background, kind of like doing the plumbing or building the kind of pipes, and you've kind of eventually kind of come to the front of the house and going like, I understand how it all works, and therefore I can do this kind of thing, kind of like I can make it all kind of like make sense. But it's actually you understand all the kind of the different the technical side of things, but also the people side of things, kind of, and it all kind of builds up and layers up from there. Awesome.
I felt very empowered when I'm now like in Alibaba Group or even here in JDID. There is this respect, there's this credibility, because when I'm talking to marketing about advertising operations or Google TFP, or I'm talking to technical team in China about Java applets or servlets, and when they say, oh, we can't do this, and then I have to come up with ideas, but how about this, or how about this? Can you do this? Can you reduce the number of clicks? So there is this credibility created over the period of time, because they are not talking to somebody who doesn't understand Java applets or servlets, or they don't understand UI, UX or design. It's that language. I understand that I may not know the depth of what they do, but I understand the language. So I can connect with them on the same platform.
Yeah.
I'm just like mind blown by this, because what an incredible set of skills and experience. I'm just thinking, like, you know, for women especially, to kind of come through that tech route and have that depth of technical expertise. I know a lot of CXs that I talk to kind of get stuck talking to IT or when it comes to the technical stuff, and you know, being able to do that and say, actually, I kind of know how this works, and I can, you know, help figure out this problem technically, I think is such an amazing asset to have in this ever progressive technology enabled world of customer experience. So I'm just like, wow, like really, like, ooh, impressive. But I guess, like, you know, I don't know whether there's the female aspect to this has been a barrier or a challenge to you, you know, being a woman in tech and rising up the ranks. But what have been the barriers and challenges you've had to overcome to get where you are today?
So last 22 years, I'm traveling around the world, and I used to be in Russia and then Israel, Ireland. And then at the core, I'm still an Indian. And now here, I'm even in Alibaba Group and JD.com. And an Indian working in a Chinese company in a country like Indonesia. So it cannot get complex anymore. It cannot get any more complex than what its situation is. So language has always been a barrier. Whether I'm in Vietnam or in Brazil, language has always been a barrier. But then me being from a gender standpoint, never, definitely never. But I would say the biggest barriers is I would say, like in universities, people learn finance, people learn marketing, people learn. There is different schools for different departments, but we don't have customer experience being taught in schools. Whether you go for MBA or university, you don't have CX being taught, not even customer service. And when I join these organizations, the first challenge or barrier I see is more of education. It's like starting from the top stakeholder, be it board or be the CEO, to all the way to the person who is actually handling customers. They don't understand customer experience. For them, it's about process. It's about problems happen, you resolve them. Problems happen, you resolve them. So it really starts with education. There is a serious lack of education of what customer experience is. Even today, now when I look back, last 10 years, things have changed. In the last 3 years, CX is quite prevalent in the market. People understand that, okay, CX is important. However, they still don't understand how to go about executing it. So in JDID or in my current organization, and even in the past organization like Alibaba, it was tough to start with the education. But then eventually, what I managed to do here was like trying to find out ways to make everyone accountable for the experience of what customers go through. And to do so, setting up NPS as a KPI for each department, not an NPS just for an organization and see a holistic picture. No, that's there. But however, each department needs to see and feel how they are either hurting or improving the NPS through their work, scope of works. Customer complaints and inquiries, I segment them by department. So how many inquiries are because of marketing TNCs not being written well, or how many complaints are because the design is not well done, and as a result, customers are asking how to go about doing things. So cost of these complaints, I divide them by department as well. So the education was not just saying that, hey, CX is very important, and if you do CX and you align that with brand promise and you will generate this much revenue, or this is what a customer acquisition is going to look like, or this is what repurchase look like. That is from them, it's all blah, blah, blah. But if we connect those dots of customer inquiries and complaints or the NPS with every work, every task, every decision they take in the department, that really helped them to see through. They could see the dots connected. And then eventually I also put them in customer calls, listen to the customer inquiries, customer calls, and they can feel that emotion. They can feel that, okay, me not writing the TNC well, or me not advertising the discounts or promotions very well, how this has actually got the customers to complain about it. And not just one, maybe 20, 30 customers are complaining about it. So when leaders get through that level of knowledge, for them, then when I go out and say that, okay, let me train you about how to read NPS data, or let me train you about what customer experience is really about, they're willing to listen. They're willing to give that time and absorb that and put it back into the department. So for me, challenges always, it's not just here, but even in previous few companies, I always saw that is the education. Not knowing what CX is a big constraint everywhere, even today. And I guess here it really helped. Today, I am very proud of this, because one thing is that every department has a customer experience champion now. So which feels like, okay, that is, for me, it's my legacy that I have been able to succeed here.
Oh, well, amazing story. And I think kind of wrapping that up, it was giving visibility through things like metrics across departments, creating accountability because each team could see where they were either adding value or reducing value to the customer experience, increasing that connection. So bringing people closer to the customer and their experience through getting them to listen into calls, etc. And then the financial accountability to actually demonstrate what the impact of the positive or negative is. That's super clear and definitely the most robust way to help businesses understand CX, not from the evangelical angle of, it's a really nice thing to do, but really kind of hard commercial, this is what's going on and why we need to do things differently and stay accountable. And then the champion within the team as well to help, spread that influence. So it's not just you and your team. That's really, really good. Thank you for sharing that.
No, I echo what Claire says. I think it's I like the idea of like taking an existing organization and almost like rewiring it in a way that you go, it kind of makes me think about, it's like a marionette type of thing, or a puppet sort of thing, where you've got like, I know that if I pull on this string, its kind of leg goes like this. Kind of like, it's good. Like, and when people see the connections, like as you say, you go like, I'm going to segment complaints by department, and then kind of like, and you track it all kind of through, and then you understand the cost of it and the impact of it, and kind of all the kind of. So when people have clarity of sight, line of sight around, I do this, and here's what happens, or here's this happened because of this, and this is what it means, is. One, you end up people truly kind of like understand the impact that they have and the connection and the connectivity that they all have. But it makes it all very real, because otherwise it's not connected, right? It's like, we did this campaign and then all these calls kind of happened in the contact center, like nothing to do with us.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're like going, yes, it was. and here's why.
Yeah, I was thinking a house metaphor. It's like really clear architecture that you've put in place, like kind of going from the plumbing to the front of the house. Now, this house has got really great structure and solid and stable because of the way that you've done that. Very impressive.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I mean, I think I do wish that But this is a different thing, right? It's like the people you talk about NPS, and people talk about, and many people chase NPS scores, and many people are incentivized on their improvements or NPS kind of scores.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But the idea that you go, oh, if we try and drive improvements that grow our NPS, that there's a correlation between NPS improvement and revenue improvement. Yeah, it's a correlation, okay? But what you're doing is you're going, here's the causation. There's this thing here, and we're going, these things are actually connected. They're tied together. And I entreat people that are listening to listen to the podcast, my podcast, and kind of listen and watching kind of like the video kind of podcast, as it were, that Claire's going to put out on the Wix community, is to think about that causation and those causative links, because that's it. That's the gold dust. That's kind of where you actually really get relevance and kind of like real kind of impact when you do that sort of like kind of work that you've done. So kind of fair play on that completely. But you're smashing it, Maneesha. You're doing all this different stuff. That's great. I mean, like, why did you enter the CX Leader of the Year competition? I mean, like, yeah, why?
So it really started with ICCA, which is the Indonesia Contact Center Awards.
Okay.
So I know that this department is doing really well for last 4 years, or last 3.5 years before we entered ICCA. And it's always about, okay, they can also see that NPS has gone up. Whatever work we do, they can actually see tangible benefits. However, there has to be this pride felt that we are good. We are good in the market. We are really best in the industry. But then it's always about our thoughts versus China thinking what they feel about this department. So we says like, okay, how about we enter the competition? And we entered ICCA competition and we won. We participated in 4 categories and we won all 4 categories. So when the announcement was being made, yeah, I was like, okay, there is a competition for contact center, but I'm not contact center. Customer service is a very small component of what I do. I mean, it's like 10%, not even 10%, 5% of my work. I'm CX. They're like, how do I? So I just search competition for customer experience. And I came across this.
It's like it's like going. Yeah, we're quite good at this. We found the World Cup. Well, we went into that, and then we won the World Cup. Like, what's next?
So it's like, how come there's not much about CX in the market, in the world? And that's how I participate. The search for it, I just simply Google it. And then I came across one Indonesian, I think it's Sri, who won the competition last year.
Sri won it last year, yeah.
Yes. And I was like, wow, it's Indonesia. And I was impressed when I read things about her. So that's how I felt like, okay, it doesn't. And there were only like 5 or 7 days left. So I was like, okay, let's make an effort to fill in the form. I did. I mean, I had already done loads of work for ICCA. It was a lot about just putting the information structured, because it's more about CX, not about customer service. Mm-hmm. And that's how I participated. There was no intention of searching or, and I didn't think I had a chance, to be honest, because I was like, okay, that this world is, although small, there are a lot of good people who are doing a lot of good work, and now they're coming forward. And I didn't know until then, how do I stand across them? Like, there's a lot to learn. CX is big. There's a lot to learn. Even now, when I have won this, I feel it's just still a lot out there which I don't know.
Can I kind of say that? So I've been kind of involved in the sort of, and as Claire has as well, in judging the whole CX Leader of the Year, and with a bunch of other sort of people. And what's fascinating for me, and I think is great, is I think over the last 4 or 5 years since it's kind of started, I can't remember, the majority of winners have been women.
Wow.
And so it starts with, I go back to like Sandra de Zoysa, is Chief Customer Officer of Dialogue Axiata in Sri Lanka. She's just ace. There is Sri Safitri from Indonesia. She won it last year. There's yourself. I think James Scott was in there from the post office, kind of like,
representing the boys,
representing the boys. and my memory fails me for other kind of people. But what's great, I mean, it's a big field, but what's great is also that that women are highly represented in this kind of category. In this kind of this award, so in terms of kind of people that actually make the final the final kind of cut, and I think fair play. I mean, and the work that you do speaks for itself. So thank you for doing the Google search.
Yeah, I was so glad you did.
And telling your story.
And what does it mean to have won? Like, what does it mean to you?
It really feels good, Claire. I mean, it really feels. It's an honor, of course, to receive this special award, but then part of me is like, wow, I mean, I'm good. And now somebody's out there recognizing and acknowledging that I'm doing a good job. But at the same time, part of me knows that I have now not just raised the bars for myself, but even for my team, my peers in customer experience, and not just peers in this company, but peers in the CX industry. So I feel this opportunity as more of a responsibility. I mean, it's a Spider-Man quote, right? I mean, everything comes with with an obligation. So for me, this is an obligation. It's not about just shining. The 5 minutes fame probably is over, but for me now is that what next? How can I do better? What can I learn from others? And I love what I'm doing. And now I have, with this reward, it gives me a purpose. It gives me this real intense need to actually go share my story, develop people, grow and groom people out in this field. And I'm already doing this in my department, but now with this reward, it's a different connection with the team, with the people whom I'm grooming right now. So yeah.
Yeah, and my advice would be to take full advantage of this 6th Leader of the Year status. And if you want to get out there and influence, being able to do stuff like writing, public speaking, continuing to make that impact, you can increase your influence beyond like your own team, and the credibility you have.
I would love to do that. Yeah. I'm already doing events. I mean, when I started doing events, I was not sure, but then during the COVID time, I did a lot of online events. I did I think 25, 30 events. In fact, I also went to Bandung Technology University, and where we generally recruit fresh graduates. But at that time, I also wanted to talk about CX. So I assisted the HR and I spoke for 1 hour about what customer experience is and what we do. Because for me, the way I have done in JDID, I grab fresh graduates, I groom them, and then after 1 year or 1.5 years, I plant them in other departments. So then they become the voice of the customer experience in that department. So they may be in marketing, but then they have worked in CX, so they know how the thought process should be. So I'm doing that, but yes, you're right that I should probably contribute more in terms of writing and really sharing of what has worked for me and what has not worked for me.
Yeah. Well, here's an opportunity. Come and talk to the community and share your case study with women in CX around the world. We'd love to have you as a visitor or even a member if you'd like to join. And and I think that point about influencing people early in their career, I totally agree. When I worked on the business side, I was head of CX at Sainsbury's. We had this amazing graduate scheme where they'd get the top talented young people, and they would always give one of them a placement in the customer experience team. And being able to see them go on with their rotations and get into these bigger and bigger jobs, but having spent that time in really getting it and understanding it, and seeing them go on to have much broader influence on departments where it was quite difficult to get into, like the commercial departments or the buying teams, was just phenomenal. So yeah, I really, really, really agree with that approach, like being able to influence people early in their careers with this stuff. And as you said, it doesn't get taught in schools. Is awesome.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of it. So this award is, yes, it's about the customer experience, but it's also about leadership, as well. And I was going to, I wanted to ask, And I remember, Claire, I don't know if you remember from last year where we asked kind of like Shri this kind of question. And the question was like, what's your leadership style? Now Shri kind of just kind of like, I don't know, she fired back this answer. We were like, which was kind of like funny. But I'm not going to tell you what it is because that'll spoil the surprise. You have to go back in the archives and find it out, kind of like to see if you can find the surprise. But Maneesha, how would you describe your leadership style?
I think I'm a very direct person. So even at work, when I lead teams, for me, leading is more leading by example. I do and then show how to do it. So this is how I really groomed my team. And I enjoy mentoring. I love talking about what I do. The passion, I am very passionate about CX. I'm very passionate of the works that I have done in the past. So it kind of reflects when I talk to my team, even talk to my colleagues and peers. So for me, more of direct, more of leading by example. Ideally, I also have a part of me where I give a vision, I give direction, I delegate, and then I just take a step back. So I get my hands dirty heavily. Like sometimes I could just sit next to an agent, or sometimes I can just go into the transport van and see the delivery all the way from warehouse to the customer's house, literally. So I like doing that because when I experience.
So you do ride-alongs with the drivers? Fair play.
Love that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I also shop on other all the competition platform, and I also connect with my own customer service agent, pretending to be a foreigner customer, and now I have problems and you don't speak English, so I can be very critical about that. So I like to get my hands dirty, but then I find places where I will groom the team where they are struggling. I'll give a direction, delegate, and then just take a step back. And I'll be more like an audience watching what's happening and how things are moving. But to do that, I first have to do it myself. That's why I mentioned I lead by example. I really get my hands dirty in all the stuff, all the works that we do. Could be a report, could be a presentation, and then put the team forward. So then I take an job of an audience, more like an observer and audience.
Nice. No, I mean, I love that. I love the kind of the idea about, well, just not the idea, it's the practice. It's the habit of getting your hands dirty. And the idea that, I mean, it's that sort of, it drives empathy into kind of leadership and insight because it collapses the distance between kind of like, I don't know, the corner office and then actually kind of like where the
reality,
where the transaction and where the interaction is really kind of taking place. And I think, and too often do I see people that end up they get promoted and they kind of get to that high position and then they forget to do that, or they don't make time to do that, or they don't take enough control over their time to make the time to do kind of that, to collapse that distance and to stay connected to that. So I love the idea that you go and listen on calls. I'd even more love the idea that you do ride-alongs with the kind of the drivers until you deliver kind of parcels out to kind of like customers. I think that's brilliant. And as well as mystery shopping yourselves and kind of and shopping the competitors and stuff. Because for me, when you talk about leading by example, that's the difference. That's the kind of some of the stuff that drives both respect from your people. So you're like going, well, if you're willing to do it, then I'm going to do it kind of too. But at the same time, it's not just about that. It's about what you gain from it, the insight and the understanding and the connections, kind of like with the kind of different people in different parts of the organization. So brilliant. I love that. Thank you.
Here's a question for you. Who was your best boss and what made them special?
I think I've been very lucky to have all my bosses really special, except with an exception of one in India, but
there's always one.
There is one. But I think as a person, I'm a very independent person and I like to be left alone. You give me a goal and I leave it to me to get it done in my way. And if I struggle, I'll come to you. Unfortunately, all the leaders that I have worked with, they have shown the trust in my capability. At the same time, they have always given this assurance that Whenever I need support, they are there. So I fight my own battles. I come up with my own solution. I'll find. I mean, I'm a person who. I'll give you an example here in JDID. The investor is the one who recruited me here, and there was some change management required in terms of the systems, and it was going to cost like $500,000. And it's just 3 months in the job, and I used to go every day 8 p.m. I used to sit in the office and then go to his cabin and like, okay, you really need to take a decision. And after 3 months, I was like, okay, look, you have recruited me because I'm good at something. You have to trust my ability. So if I don't have data to show how this is going to benefit, but you have to trust my ability and my experience. Otherwise, it's a waste of getting someone getting me from all the way from Singapore to Indonesia. And he was like, and then I literally I used to take the chair from outside, pull it into his cabin, and I sit there. And I was like, okay, so what next? And he was like literally moved. He said like, that's true that I got you here because you have some ability. And okay, I said, then give me that chance to just show and showcase that this can really change the business and just change the way we we work with customers. And that's helped. That trust is very important for me. And I think that's what I give to my team as well. One is the trust, and I leave them alone and I let them fail. It's sometimes really small failures are good, but at the same time, also there to hold their hands. I don't, because as an organization, or as a leader, I cannot just allow big failures, right? It's going to be also hurt what I'm doing. So at the same time, that assurance is always there that I'm there. So it's an open door policy. So that's what I also expect from my leaders. And I have really got that always. So independence, and then letting me fight my own battles, let me struggle, let me come up with innovative ways instead of giving me direct saying, okay, do this, do this, do this. Which I think I'm very lucky, pretty good that I have only got lending hand only when I ask for it.
So trust, empowerment, permission to fail, but protection from failing too badly. So yes. People can learn from their own mistakes, develop through growing by learning. And yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Like, there's nothing worse than being told what to do. And no one's ever going to grow, are they, if they don't get the chance to figure things out for themselves? And sometimes learning the hard way is a better way to learn faster than constantly being thought for on someone else's behalf. So yeah, that's a good reminder. And lovely to see like you've recognized that in your previous leaders and took that role model behavior, done it yourself, and your expectation of your team and the managers and people within your team is to do the same thing for theirs. I think that's how leadership magic spreads, isn't it? Like leading by example and treating people how you'd like to be treated. Yeah.
I always tell my team something, Claire, is that I'm only as good as they are. So, and this is exactly what I tell my boss, that NPS and all of these are all secondary things, but at the end of the day, it's the management who sit on the board is what making him succeed or fail. And it's the same for me. My team, I'm only good as my team. So if I don't help my team move forward and give that the space to think and be innovative, it is going to be basically damaging what I am here to sitting and allowed to do, focused to do.
And that compound effect works both ways.
Yeah.
Love it.
So I was going to, well, you were answering there. Well, what we'd kind of prepared was that to ask you about who's your best boss and kind of like why. And then I was going to then follow on from that, ask you about kind of what's the biggest leadership lessons that you've kind of learned. But I think you've just answered that question. So I'm going to just pass it straight back to kind of Claire and just go, because that you've just answered one. And unless there's anything else you'd add, is there anything that you think the biggest thing?
Well, I was going to say the biggest lesson from failure. Like, could you share that one?
Well, I was going to say I was just kind of reaching to see if I can kind of do it. I mean, is there a biggest thing? You talk about failure. I mean, I remember. I'll tell you what. I'll trade you. I'll tell you kind of one. I remember doing a presentation kind of once. And it was in the middle of a room, and it was like a boardroom type thing. And the desks were arranged like a horseshoe, and I was stood in the middle, presenting onto this back wall. It's like quite an intimidating, almost gladiatorial sort of like arena type thing. And I was doing this presentation, and this was a previous part of my career, and it was like hardcore macroeconomics and forecasting and things. And I'd done all this work and and then but did the presentation, and about halfway through the presentation, completely lost my place, just blanked. And I was stood in the middle of this kind of like this room full of senior kind of people, just like sweating, kind of like just feeling as if I'm about to pass out, sort of thing. And eventually found my space again. My boss was watching kind of from the corner of the room, watching me sweat. Anyway, I recovered and kept going and finished it off and things. And my boss was brilliant. This guy called Hishem is probably one of the best bosses, if not the best boss I've ever had. Hishem Fahmy, if you're listening to this, big props. And he took me aside and he said, "So what did you learn about that?" And I was a bit like, know your stuff, forwards, backwards, upside down, back to front, inside out, kind of all these different sort of things. Because when you have this kind of understand it, then it doesn't matter about kind of like what you've got kind of planned, as you're equipped for everything. And that was the biggest lesson that came through massive failure and embarrassment and all these different sort of things, but forced to recover from it. And I think it's these little things that happened to me. What's it? 95.
Gonna age himself now.
Yeah. Nearly 25 years ago.
Wow.
And it's funny. Nice. It still has a visceral kind of like impact on me when I think about it. And so
I can imagine.
That's a long kind of preamble to the question that Claire was kind of prompting me to kind of ask. Is like, do you have a question? Do you have a story like that? You going, this happened, doesn't need to be as big as that, but this happened, and I learned a big leadership lesson around that, or a big lesson that informs how I do things.
Maybe not in a corporate job, but in between in Singapore, I had my own company, retail organization. I started it for autistic kids. So I have a special child as well, not an autistic, but an ADHD child. So my work started really helping my son a lot. So I thought of in Singapore, quit my job and started this company. And where I used to fly down to China and Thailand, work with the manufacturers, design. I used to design the products and I used to get them manufactured. And it was nice. The strategy is good. The people could see the benefits of that product in Singapore in the autistic school. I used to volunteer there. However, in the whole design, I was so passionate of what I wanted to do and I wanted to serve the world that I forgot it's in a retail business, it's all about money. I mean, to manufacture, I had to pay up 20,000 USD upfront. And then, so there was a lot of expenses. And when the products were shipped, I had to pay taxes, import taxes and licensing and all of that. And then these $50,000 worth of products are sitting in my house, in my apartment, in one of the bedrooms. And then I couldn't find ways to sell. So I partnered with doctors and everything. And then 3 months, 6 months passed, 8 months passed. And then it just took me into depression that I have spent so much money. I've left my job. I have this kid, 2 kids now, and I'm a single mother. And I'm like, okay, what the hell? What am I doing? And then after a year, finally, I came to my senses. Like, okay, I did not think through. But then I look at my plan. I had a very nice strategic plan. So I did think through whom to connect, what doctors and everything. But what I underestimated was the amount of cash. It is a very cash intensive business, retail business. And I underestimated the amount of cash that will be required to run it. So finally, after a year, I sold the business to someone in India and partly in Singapore. And then I came out. I couldn't recover all the expenses. And then I joined an organization. But today, it's like what you said. It's like part of it always hurts because it was hard-earned cash, from my job, my savings. I sold my house, sold my condo, sold my car and everything. And Singapore is not a cheap place to stay. And then I start this with a lot of love and passion for special kids. And then what? I lost everything. Bank balance was zero, completely bankrupt. But even today, it's been more than, I would say, this was in 2017, 18. And even today, actually 2012. And even today, it hurts when I think about it. The reason, and then the biggest lesson for me is that It's not that my planning was wrong or anything. Of course, but it's about me unable to take a decision faster to shut down. I shut down. Part of me knew that, okay, I have a great idea and I can sell it off and I can make whatever money I can. And then there's no ego. There's nothing to be shy of. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And that I brought to the business. Now, when I have like more than 500 projects in JDID, this company, and we start, we close, we start and stop. And people come to me and say, like even the senior management, they say, Maneesha, it's really brave. Like and it's good. One of the international CEO, he actually approached me, and one line he mentioned that it's amazing that all the leaders will start new initiatives. They might even pause, but they don't have the guts to stop. He said there is not guts or courage required to start initiatives. It is a guts required to say that, hey, it is not working. Let's stop it immediately. And that my own business that failed, that entity that failed, if I had, I keep thinking about it. And I know that I could have recovered faster if I had taken that decision to just stop immediately. Within 3 months, I knew things are not working. Something needs to be changed in that business. So that is my biggest learning lesson. And I always, even in the ICCA competition, I now as a department, we contribute to close to $100 million every month in the GMV, the CX department. We came up with lots of initiatives to stop all the different types of leakages of orders. But we started almost 15, 20 initiatives, but we kept only 4. Everything else we stopped. And for me, fail fast, success faster. Because that way we are moving on. We don't drool, we don't drag, and we save time, energy, and also the morale of the team, morale of myself. That's my biggest lesson, I would say.
What an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So
That's great.
powerful,
Thank you.
so inspiring. Yeah.
Oh. Thank you.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The idea that when was the last thing that you killed something or you stopped something is a fantastic question to ask anybody who is kind of in an executive leadership kind of position. And if they struggle to come up with an answer,
no problem. Yeah,
there's a problem.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's brilliant. Claire, over to you. I'm gonna kind of dry my eyes a little bit.
I know. I really felt that. I really felt that too. So kind of looking ahead then into the future. I know none of us have a crystal ball, but what do you think the future of service and experience looks like? Could start with like the challenges that lie ahead, perhaps, or what the key success factors and characteristics might be. Get your crystal ball out and give us some predictions.
I think for me, the education, that the one I mentioned earlier, the markets have to step up, because customer experience is not a magic wand. And so they cannot use customer experience to say that, okay, we will do CX and then we'll be okay. No, all the markets first have to step up. It's getting very competitive, and it's also getting super fragmented, all the businesses. So they need to find an edge, and they need to get better, to be better than a competition. It is super important to have that one edge. So now what I see is that in terms of the service industry or where there's a experience design or where it can be applied, every single market, even ourselves, like in JDID also, it's important. Everybody is forced to look into business, cut cost, find ways to be effective and efficient, but without sacrificing the quality of the service that you provide to your end customer. Mm-hmm. So customer experience it used to be this how do you say, it's a word which was like very loosely used.
Buzzword.
Even today, it's very loosely used. And so it's not a luxury anymore. Customer experience is not a luxury anymore. Like if you see a lot of departments, a lot of companies, it is that, we have a customer experience team and we do this and that. But no, it's not a luxury anymore. It's become a necessity. If you want to survive, the organization have to survive, companies have to survive, the markets have to survive. CX is going to be supposed to be a strong pillar for the organization. And it's going to be universal. It doesn't matter which industry, which service, what is the size of your company, whether you're a 10 people company or you're a 100,000 people company. Sooner or later, the only way that, I mean, now after COVID, we are already seeing the only way that you can sustain, so have a sustainable growth is basically knowing the edge and knowing how do you differentiate on a customer experience. I mean, and that is the only way you justify the existence of a business or an organization.
Mm.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. Kind of, it's the truth from Maneesha.
And what capability do you think businesses are going to need to be able to do that? Like, is there, you mentioned like design there, is that the core capability, being able to define what CX means specifically within your organization, if whether or not it is the thing that will give you the competitive edge, and therefore how you design and build products and services with that value included? Or
I really believe in blue ocean strategy. Everybody has, the market is big. I mean, I think in fact that was the discussion I was having with Adrian before, is that the pie is big, but to survive and to thrive and to create a legacy, that edge is required. What makes you stand out in the crowd? Mm-hmm. What makes people think about you? They may not come constantly by repurchase rate. Yeah, it's important, but like I don't shop on Amazon every month or every year. But the experience that Amazon gave me in certain selected countries, it's like, I'm like, wow, I want JDID to be like Amazon. You know, even in supply chain, how Zappos is, okay, I would like to bring that culture there. So that they created a legacy. It's every organization has to know what that edge is. And it may be different because maybe it depends upon you focus only on a certain class of customers, or you want to focus only on a certain category of products, or you want to only focus on certain areas of the business or territories or provinces. But that specific needs to be defined as a part of the brand promise. And then you design the overall experience around it. Because if that specific is not there, if you just like come up with a company and we run it as it is and we have a very good experience, but with no specific goal in mind, what is a legacy? What are people going to remember you for? That is going to be super important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So it's like this strategic view of customer experience rather than in isolation as this thing that kind of sits outside of the organization that people are trying to drive for the sake of it. It's how do you think strategically about your product, service, even supply chain, that means that you understand and can isolate the most important areas or elements that will create value for the business and for the customer, find those little sweet spots, and continue to think strategically then through clarity around, well, how do we design products, services, and experiences that give our business that competitive edge that you mentioned earlier, and therefore create even further value. Not a kind of let's just make everything amazing, because that is clearly bonkers. Let's get really clear about what we're doing, where and why, and how that creates value for people, and how that relates to an overall benefit to the organization. Very, very nicely put.
I mean, I think that's you're right. I mean, I think there's too many people that it's almost a bit of a there's a herd mentality around strategy. There's like and then there's this delusional sort of factor where people kind of like, oh, we'll do everything the same thing as we'll do everything that all these other people will do, and then we expect to be different. You're like, going, explain to me how that works. It's like magic, but actually being different requires you to do different things and to make different choices. And I think that's as a point, you're absolutely right. It's like kind of because the only thing that's kind of like so really sustainable in the long term is the difference that you kind of create and you generate and you sustain.
But with Amazon, that was a good example, isn't it? Because they kind of created a brand signature in their experience about like the speed of delivery, like same day, next day, brand promises around returns, refunds, literally money straight back in your account. We'll even come and collect things for you. Like they built that as this is what Amazon service is, and that was so different, especially at the time. But it has kind of led to this expectation that every business will do that for everybody now, and it's this like Amazon effect of dissatisfaction. Like if I place an order, I'm like, what, 3 days to get to get something online? I'm like, what? How is that even possible? And I am a very regular Amazon shopper, unfortunately. Can't help myself. But what is kind of functional and expected now, and what will that edge be, and how will you be able to do something different? And is it required or not? I think that's the understanding of who you're serving, isn't it? That really clear understanding of like needs, unmet needs, what is actually really important, what isn't important, and making sure you're investing in the right places to meet the demand either of clients or customers is the most important thing.
And maybe I could take that and distill that kind of like down a little bit, because I think actually we talked about a bunch of different things. Maneesha, obviously we want to give you massive props and congratulations for winning the CX Leader of the Year competition this year, and it's much deserved. You're a deserved winner by everything that you've kind of like your application and everything you've told us kind of here. I think what you're doing is tremendous work. However, if I was to extract the one thing from your kind of brain and your experience, with like boil it all down to its essence, kind of like this is the thing that you should be doing, or this is the advice that you would give to an aspiring kind of leader that wants to improve both their own performance and also the experience outcomes that their company or brand delivers. I mean, like, if it's like the one thing, what would that be?
I think it's the DNA of the senior management. If customer centricity is not embedded in the DNA of the CEO, it is very hard to translate that into the culture of the company and then the habits and the discipline of the employees. I really believe, like, I know how I am is because how my CEOs have led me in I've always been reporting to CEO in the past 10, 15 years, and I see how they operate. And a huge part of me is because of how they operate. I see how my team, when they are recruited, they are different. But then when they see the discipline and the way I act, the way I lead my presentations and the way stuff I do, they copy over and that comes into them. So even in this organization, my CX department has a very different culture versus other departments, because again, it's up to the leader of what culture they have embedded in. Now, for me, if you really want to make that edge and that differentiation possible, first start with the DNA of the CEO. There are certain habits, certain things needs to be embedded in the mindset, attitude of the C-level executives. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. You can have the best of the best customer experience people, but then it is going to be very hard to translate that as part of the culture.
So can I ask about that? Because I'm interested in the sort of the dynamic of that. So are you saying that you should go and find a CEO or a senior leader that is like that, or can you kind of help make that CEO or that senior leader by kind of managing up the way and influencing up the way?
Exactly. Both is possible. I did the latter, which is basically influence my CEO or the people whom I work with, not just the CEO, to see through what customer experience or customer centricity is about. And for me, I'll give you an example, like in our management meeting where all the directors are sitting, I share one customer case in that management meeting every single week without fail. So even if it is the management meeting is 3 hours, 4 hours, or just 30 minutes, I will always take that opportunity to share one customer case for 5 minutes. And that just keeps them in touch with the fact that, hey, we are here in the business for the customer. We can't exist without them. And that over the period of time, now if suppose we don't present something, suddenly like I am on leave or something happens and I don't have the time to prepare the presentation, they will ask me in the meeting, Maneesha, we don't have a case today. It's been 4 years, but then that, again, as I said, to create that culture, that mindset has to be there. Now, either you influence a mindset or you get people who are already customer centric. Now, it's very hard to get people who are customer centric, right? It's an education, isn't it? It's a simple education. So creating that influence, and once the C-level executive, CEO, whoever is has that DNA of customer centricity, getting that as part of the culture becomes so easy. Then everything else just starts falling back in place. And then automatically the right attitude of the teams comes. And It's like, I use this mechanism, like I always use this line that we go from the mode of like fixing to preventing, and then from preventing to anticipating. So in the beginning, we are always fixing. We wait for customer service to complain. Then we try to come up with all possible ways to prevent and reoccurrence of those problems. But then with CX and the DNA up there in place with the C-level executives, you start going into an anticipation mode. You want to do the right thing at the right time, not wait for problems to occur.
Perfect.
Oh, what a wonderful point to end on. Very, very inspiring, super clear. I've taken so much away from this conversation, and absolutely think, shout about your case study and your experience of, not just winning the award, but all this credibility that you've built, how you've influenced senior executives, how you're delivering results, how it's permeating through every layer of the organization. I think there aren't enough case studies that describe so accurately what you did and how you did it. And, that causation versus correlation that Adrian pointed out earlier. I'm just massively impressed. I think you're wonderful. So congratulations once more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much.
Well, what she said, kind of like, I don't know, kind of if it's that way or that way or that way, kind of upstairs or downstairs, kind of wherever the kind of the video screen is, like what Claire said.
He's talking about the Zoom rooms for everyone listening.
What Claire said, kind of like, and by the way, this is an audio recording for my podcast. You'd have no idea what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is, I absolutely echo what Claire said in big capital letters, because Maneesha, so thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for sharing your time and your experience and your story with us today. And congratulations on winning the award. And I can't wait to hear what you end up getting up to next, because I think you are a force and a voice that people should tune into and pay attention to, because you're smashing it. And so thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today here, Rajan. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. No, you're more than welcome. Can't wait to hang out with you again in the Women in CX community, hopefully soon.
Definitely.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.